Hello, mathematicians. Today we're going to be learning about ratios. More specifically, how to compare ratio relationships using unit rate. To get us started, let's first go over what a unit rate is. A unit rate is a rate that compares two quantities, but one of the quantities is exactly one. It tells you how much of something happens for every one of something else. So for example, if 2 burgers cost $8, then in order to find the unit rate, we would want to find out how much one burger costs. And in order to do that, we're going to have to go ahead and divide. So the $8 divided by the 2 burgers is equal to 4, and then the 4 represents that each one of those burgers costs $4. So the unit rate is $4 for one burger. So the unit rate finds out how much something is of one of something else. So here we have 3 ice cream shops. We have Frosty's Ice Cream Shop, where 3 large sundaes cost $28. We have Cool Cones Creamery, where 2 large sundaes cost $17, 4 large sundaes cost $34, 6 large sundaes cost $51, and 8 large sundaes cost $68. And then we have Sweet Scoops Parlor, where 1 large sundae costs $8, 2 large sundaes cost $16, 3 large sundaes cost $24, 4 large sundaes cost $32, and 5 large sundaes cost $40. So we want to know which ice cream shop has the better deal. That means which one of these ice cream shops can we get a large sundae and it costs the cheapest amount. In order to find that out, we have to figure out how much 1 large sundae costs in every ice cream shop. So let's start off with Frosty's Ice Cream Shop. We know that the special is that you could get 3 large sundaes for $28, but let's figure out how much each one of these sundaes costs. So we're going to go ahead and do $28 divided by the 3 sundaes to figure out the cost of one sundae. And we ask ourselves, how many times could 3 go into 2? And 3 cannot go into 2. So we ask ourselves, how many times could 3 go into 28? And 3 could go into 28 9 times, and that's because 3 times 9 is equal to 27. And that's as close as we could get to 28 without going over. So we're going to go ahead and subtract. 28 minus 27 is equal to 1. And here we have a remainder, but because we're talking about money, we're going to go ahead and write our remainder as a decimal. So that means we have to add a decimal after the 28 and make sure we also bring that up. So now let's add a 0 so we could keep dividing. We're going to bring that 0 down. And now we ask ourselves, how many times could 3 go into 10? Well, 3 could go into 10 3 times because 3 times 3 is equal to 9, and that's as close as we could get without going over. So now we're going to go ahead and subtract. 10 minus 9 is equal to 1. Because we still have a remainder, let's add another 0. We're going to bring that down, and now we have 10 again. And we ask ourselves, how many times does 3 go into 10? Well, 3 goes into 10 3 times because 3 times 3 is equal to 9. And then we're going to go ahead and subtract again. 10 minus 9 is equal to 1. And then we're going to go ahead and add another 0. And notice that the same thing keeps happening. And because this is a repeating decimal, we're just going to stop. Now, mind you, when we're talking about money, our decimal ends in the hundredths place, but this decimal keeps going. So we're going to look at the number after the hundredths place, which is 3, which will tell us if we round up the number before it or if we leave it the same. And because it's 3, we're going to leave it the same. We're not going to round up, only if it was 5 or higher. So that means that each large sundae costs about $9.33. Next, we have the Cool Cones Creamery. And for this one, we know that 2 large sundaes cost $17. So we could take the $17 and divide it by the 2 large sundaes to figure out how much 1 large sundae costs. So once we set up our long division, we ask ourselves, how many times could 2 go into 1? And 2 cannot go into 1, so we ask ourselves, how many times could 2 go into 17? And 2 could go into 17 8 times because 2 times 8 is equal to 16. And so we're going to go ahead and subtract. 17 minus 16 is equal to 1. Now we have a remainder again. But because we're talking about money, we're going to go ahead and add a decimal point. And then make sure we bring up that decimal point and add a 0. Now we're going to bring down that 0 and keep dividing. So we ask ourselves, how many times does 2 go into 10? Well, 2 goes into 10 5 times because 2 times 5 is equal to 10. So we're going to go ahead and subtract, and we do not have a remainder. However, we know that money ends in the hundreds place, and this decimal ends in the tenths place. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a 0 at the end. And 8 and 5 tenths is the same thing as 8 and 50 hundredths. So these are equivalent, but if we're talking about money, we need it to go up to the hundredths place value. So in Cool Cones Creamery, each large sundae is $8.50. So now let's go ahead and figure out how much 1 large sundae costs at Sweet Scoops Parlor. So if we look at this first coordinate point, which is 1, 8, we know that this coordinate represents that 1 large sundae costs $8. So now let's compare the price of 1 sundae for each ice cream shop. So here are the 3 ice cream shops. And we found out that in Frosty's ice cream shop, each large sundae is about $9.33. At Cool Cones Creamery, we found out that 1 large sundae is $8.50. And at Sweet Scoops Parlor, we found out that 1 large sundae is $8. So this means that the ice cream shop with a better deal is Sweet Scoops Parlor because it is the cheapest. And Frosty's ice cream shop, on the other hand, is the most expensive.